Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LeanTossup CDL Picks and Bets podcast. My name is Robert, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host Ryan of CDL Metrics. Ryan, welcome, and how are you? How are you doing tonight?
I am doing well. I'm getting excited for our last qualifier stage, our last major before champs. We've had a nice little break again between, the end of major three and now this first week of stage four. But I'm ready to get back at it and talk a little bit of COD.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're rapidly nearing the end of this year of this we're rapidly nearing the end of this year. We're in the last basically part of the regular season now. We've got 3 weeks of basically pool play matches. Then we've got the major, and then we've got champs. And champs will be only a couple weeks away, basically at this point, as we're functionally in July at this point. I believe champs is August 4th through 7th, so we are very close to the end of the CDL season. Champs is Yeah, I don't think. I don't think we have a bracket. Oh, we do have a bracket for champs, actually. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. There's actually, if you go on,
Cool.
I'm literally looking at this now. There actually is a bracket online for champs. It's a double elimination, 8 team double elimination. Breaking news here, guys. Or breaking news. I just clicked on this tab randomly, and it tells me that there is no seating like last year. Right? Remember how last year um we had basically two got a bye and two were in the losers bracket. Nope, it's just 8 team double limb. So cool, that's cool. We're breaking some news there. But yeah, we are very close to the end of this year here, and next year we'll bring Modern Warfare and also football, but football first, then Modern Warfare. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting end of the year, and not going to be particularly sad to see Vanguard go. But I mean, it's been a fun year. We've
Yeah.
still had some great matches, but I'm going to be very happy when I do not have to see Bocage anymore. Um, Moving on. So we've actually done something kind of special here. We hope to maybe do it in the future, depending on how the format works going forward. But we actually have we've done now projected wins by stage. So for example, I built my model and I basically told it to forecast every single game for the stage, and then based on win probability. So for example, in a match, and I'm just gonna pick Atlanta FaZe because they're alphabetically they're first and they're first here on my sheet here. But basically, FaZe say they have an 80% chance of winning a game, and that means that we'd give them zero point 0.8 of a win, and then we'd assess that for basically every game going forward for the entire season, for the entire stage. Sorry. So because again, we know the schedule of the stage, so we can see how everything would map up. So here it is in alphabetical order. Here's my expected wins. Then we'll do Ryan's here. So I've got FaZe at 3.88 wins, Boston at 1.06 wins, Florida at 2.49 wins, LAG at 3.58 wins, Thieves at actually wait a second. Oh, I messed up a thing. 1 second. Let me just fix that. Sorry, LEG and LA Thieves are the same. Let me double do LA Thieves. Yeah, okay. LAG is 1 win, sorry. 0.98, sorry. Thieves is 3.58, London is 1.06, Minnesota 3.14, New York 2.58, Optic 2.95, Paris 0.55, Seattle 3.56, and then Toronto 3.813. So some balance there. The Atlanta ones are a bit unfair because they have a couple matches where the model thinks they're really close. Like they're playing, obviously Seattle, they're playing Toronto, and I'm not sure. I don't think they're playing Optic, but they're playing someone else who's somewhat of a competitor against them. But basically, they have a couple of closer games, and then that's why their numbers a bit low. They probably should have the highest, and they do, but it's still somewhat close. But yeah, that's interesting. Model has no faith in LEG. LEG would not move on with this. Same as Paris. Paris is basically saying Paris will go 0-5 or maybe win one game. London winning a game, I think that's a bit low. They may have improved. Again, we're not factoring. It's not player based, so I can't really adjust for Gizmo coming back yet. Florida at 2.5 again changes, but this is kind of interesting. This is kind of the model is kind of forecasting par for the course, right? There's nothing really here that, except for Optic at only three. But again, Optic has a couple of close matches too. Um, but yeah, nothing really sticking out to me as particularly crazy here. What are your projections for the stage in terms of win losses?
Yeah, for sure. I'll go just in order of most to least. I have actually Optic at number one by a decent margin, 3.87 wins. Then Phase at 3.54. Then Seattle Surge, our major three champs, at 3.14. Florida Mutineers at fourth, 2.98. Then Rocker, 2.77. Thieves, 2.63. Ultra, 2.55. Then a bit of a gap. LAG at 2.13, Boston at 2.05, London at 1.89, New York at 1.78, and Paris at 0.67. So some things that stuck out to me, Optics still at the top despite, some struggles at the last major with Prolute on the roster. They kind of faded down the stretch. Like Prolute came onto the team, they looked amazing. And then, yeah, Major 3, much like Major 2, was not that kind to them. Pretty early exit overall. Phase at number 2. Um, they seemingly are number 2 this entire year for everything they do, but still very comfortable. Win total for them. Seattle obviously shot up the power ranks with their performance, not only at the major, but the qualifier stage. They only lost one match, in the last basically 2 months. Florida Mutineers at fourth was probably the biggest surprise for me. They come in at just under 3 wins. Um, I am a little hesitant to like if they do get the 4 seed at this major, I would be kind of surprised. One because they have a pretty significant roster change where they're swapping out half their team for a new half. Um, but one thing that is in Florida's favor is their schedule is very, very easy. They do get to play Paris, and they do not have to play Optic or Phase, which is very nice. And then everything else is pretty par for the course. Toronto is maybe a little low. They come in at seventh for me. There is that pretty nice gap between seventh and eighth, though. So I do think they should make winners bracket, despite being only seventh best in expected wins. Part of that is just a somewhat difficult schedule where they have to play, I think, both Phase and Optic, which that's as tough as it gets. They don't get Paris. Um, but their other 3 matches are pretty winnable. But Toronto might go 2-3 this stage, but that might still be enough to get them in winners bracket. And then otherwise, I think like the bottom 5 teams don't surprise me. Obviously, Paris is at the very very bottom. New York, my model's been low on most of the year, which I think it's been right about. But yeah, like, I don't know, it's tough for everybody. New York hasn't looked great. London, we'll see if they can do something with this, roster they had at the beginning of the year. And then LAG, right, that, like, good job on winning Major 2. Outside of that, it's been a whole lot of nothing. And then Boston's an interesting team because their schedule is brutal, and they're making a roster move that is maybe questionable. Um, but yeah, I do worry about them a little bit as well. So all of this should set up a very interesting Major 4. But honestly, these qualifier matches, especially between these teams that are like fighting to stay above that 8 seed line, like these matches mean a lot at the end of the day. So I'm very, very excited. I do think we get maybe a bit of a rebound in terms of like total viewership for this last qualifier stage, last major, just because it is the table setter for champs, right? I think Major 3 maybe was the low point because we weren't quite at the table setting stage yet. But now that we are, um, I think the hype is kind of building up that, like, all right, champs is around the corner. These matches matter a lot. Let's see who wins.
I'm I'm unconvinced we're gonna get viewership back up. I kind of
Maybe
think,
not to Major 1 levels,
yeah,
but maybe a slight tick up.
probably maybe a slight tick up. I'll give you that. But I mean, half of me, I would not be surprised if it just drops even lower. But we'll have to see. I don't know. I hope it doesn't, to be honest. But and I hope we can get off of YouTube and onto Twitch next year. But yeah, it's not great. But yeah, hopefully we can get a little bit better viewership numbers in the future, and hope for that. But yeah, I'm not betting on higher viewership. But yeah, one thing you can bet on for this major though, and again, it's still early. I've already looked at some. This is how fast COD is evolving here in terms of betting lines. We already have betting lines for to win Major Four. Now, surprisingly, we don't actually have betting lines for Rookie of the Year and MVP have all been taken down. I guess we abused those a little too much, I guess. Um, but we do have some interesting betting lines here. So the thing is, I just a quick comment here before because we may never see another Rookie of the Year betting line again. I suspect we won't. But we basically going into Major Three, Capsule was even money to be Rookie of the Year. He is on the bench, and his next closest rivals were Sib and Pred, very far out. Like I think Sib was like 3 or 4 to 1, and Pred was that. I've got bets on both of them, and I'd assume they're the favorites. Now there's no lineup, but they'd have to be the favorites. Pred, I'm assuming it must be like something like minus 200 or something.
Yeah,
But those
I
are
would
gone. No idea who's
I would
gonna
agree
be.
with that.
Yeah, no idea who's going to be the major, who's going to be the MVP of the regular season. But I don't even know when those are announced. Those might actually be announced either at Major Four or right before Major Four. I don't know. I don't know the CDL. So, but I'm assuming that's what they're concerned about too. They don't want to have those sitting there. So, but no, one line that's really attracted to me so far. Texas at Optic at plus 275 to win. That's not horrible. Obviously, Illy isn't playing currently, but he could potentially play the major. But also, they weren't bad with Perlu. Optic is a little bit of an onliner. I'm sure we'll talk about them a bit more later. But to win Major 4, the lines that I'm seeing right now, right off the bat, Ravens at 250 to 1. They are the second lowest next to Paris at 500 to 1. This Ravens team is now the same team that got, I believe they were top 4 in Major 1. And I think they were semi-competitive in Major 2. They kind of got a little far, but they didn't get that far. But then they kind of fell apart. Gizmo went off. That's when kind of Gizmo was having issues, and then we have still no idea what happened with that. Why he left the team, joined a challengers team for a bit, and came back. I no idea why that is. But and again, will they win potentially? No. But at 250 to 1, a $10 bet returns you $2,500. That like you come on, you got to put that in. Because again, the thing is like we're even saying they're about 2-3 wins. 2-3 wins can be winners bracket, right? Now again, you're immediately going to run to the buzzsaw of the top team. But like, there's some games like if they got an upset in here, if they got 3-4 wins, suddenly they could be like, it's definitely possible. It's not impossible that they could have 3-4 wins. Because their matches are Toronto on Saturday, so we're gonna know real fast if this bet is cooked or not. Then they don't play for a week. Then they play Minnesota, a match that they can win that matchup. If they're better and Minnesota's a little bit worse, like they were at the major, they can win that match. Then they play Florida. They could definitely beat Florida. That's definitely a winnable game. Then they play FaZe. Okay, probably not great, but if they're on the rebound, they could potentially make that competitive. No idea what's going to be happening with FaZe there. And then last but not least, they play LAG, which that would be a gimme. So you're potentially looking at 4 of those games are potentially winnable. Even the Ultra game, we'll talk about that probably very soon. But like I think 250 to 1 is nuts for that. I think that's a bad number. And I think that if you bet this now, especially in something like Bet365 where you can cash out bets later, I can't see it going wrong. I literally cannot see it going wrong. I think you're gonna get if you bet this now and it goes up in price. If they go up to 4-1 or maybe they even go 5-0 through the stage, like you could be looking at a massive cash out on that. So, and I mean, we've talked a bit about London. I've always thought they were going to win a major. I've just gotten it wrong with which major. Um, but yeah, I don't think they're a horrible team. I think like 250 to 1 is definitely a bad price on there. What do you think about that, Ryan? Is that the only bet you're seeing on the board for to win the major, or do you see any other bets you like?
No, I do see a handful that intrigue me. A couple, yeah, if you're looking for just outright winners of the major, I don't think you can go wrong just stacking FaZe and Optic. These teams have been, like, I would argue these are still the number one and number two teams in the league. And somehow Seattle Surge is I guess, co-favorites with FaZe now at plus 240. Um, and like, yes, Seattle just won Major 3. They looked awesome. But like I know FaZe is a dominant team. I know Seattle can go cold at any point. I have confidence with FaZe every match they're going to come out and they're going to put up a fight. Like Seattle might come out and get swept here and there, and like they almost lost to subliners in the first round of the last major in a game 5 round 11. If that goes the other way, Seattle probably aren't the major 3 champs. That's how close this can get sometimes. So yeah, I like you're not going to get FaZe and Optic at numbers this high like maybe ever again. Like these teams are always seemingly around even money, maybe plus 150. Maybe if one of them is struggling to get out to plus 200, now you're getting both at, plus 240 or better. So those I like. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, the London plus 250, I'm sorry, plus 25,000, 250 to 1, like, yeah, that works. If you're like me with these teams that struggle a little and you worry about, like, if they could actually, finish the job if they get to that grand finals, the to reach the final for London is 100 to 1, which if you do the math on that, it means that London essentially have a 1% chance of reaching the final. So if you think they have a 2% chance of reaching the final, then that's a really, really good bet to make. So yeah, that like I feel like you have to make a play on that because they're going back to Gizmo. This lineup will be exactly what it was at the beginning of the year when London was one of like the top 3, top 4 teams in the league. They looked great in the Major 1 qualifiers. At Major 1, they made a heck of a run. Almost made it to the grand finals. I believe they finished third. And I think I had a to reach the final, if not win outright on them, and that came up just short. So that stung. But I mean, since Gizmo has been in and out of the lineup, like they've struggled in this middle portion of the year. Maybe with him back in, it brings the stability they need, and they can find that form again that they had early in the year. With these other teams, there's just so much juggling, or nothing is changing, and we know what they are. Like LA Thieves are 25 to 1 to win the major 4, which like yeah, if you guarantee me that they start in winners bracket, yeah, that's a number I could get with. It's just again, it's this team that we've seen all year. They go hot, they go cold. They show up some nights, they don't. Some like I don't know what to expect, but if the number's big enough and they're in a winners bracket, like yeah, they could go on a nice little run and navigate their way into Sunday, and then who knows what happens. So there's that. Otherwise, like, Boston Breech are 150 to 1 to win. They've really struggled. They also have a heck of a schedule to get to the major. That's a team I do worry about. But again, it's like if they can make it through and even just get the 8th seed in this major, you're getting a winners bracket team at 150 to 1. It's like that's insane. So there's a lot of different ways you could go with it, but my definite favorites are just taking, a couple of the top dogs and hoping that they just remain dominant as they have been for basically the entire year. And that's yeah, FaZe and Optic. And then yeah, if you want to go crazy, sprinkle a little on one of these teams that has just an enormous number, and hope that they can, weasel their way into winners bracket.
Well, we're not betting on Paris, so
That's true.
I mean,
Don't do that.
do not bet on Paris, even as a joke. Do not give them $1. I mean, the thing was, and again, it was funny because for the first 2 majors, because of the way that the major model works, it lets teams go on runs and then increase their elo and stats as they win games. So it was kind of really cool that way. But what happens is the best thing about that version is that it let a team like Paris actually have a chance to win, because as Paris would beat teams, they get better, and then they got to the finals, they could actually have a chance to win. Now they never actually won. I know they won once. They won one time in Major 1, one time in Major 2, but Major 3 there was not a single simulation where they won. So down from one time out of 10,000 to win the major down to 0 times. It's just really showing their slide. Like they're really backsliding, as we say here. It's not good for them. It's not like, I mean, obviously it's a joke, right? Because it's one one is around 1 out of 10,000, clearly a rounding error. But like, it's funny how that is kind of symbolic though. Like they have been doing worse, and because they've been doing worse, that 1 out of 10,000 chance is now a 1 out of 20,000 or 50,000 chance, right? So, yep,
There's
that's
only so many ways you can say Paris is bad, you know? Like, that's what it comes down to.
that is true. There are only so many ways you could say they are bad. But anyways, let us move on to the matches for this week. So we have 10 matches. Um, Obviously, here, let me just call them up for a second here. So, stage 4. Starting off Friday at 3 o'clock. Yeah, it's Friday 3 o'clock. First matchup, Florida versus Subliners on Bovada. Let me just check. Do we have line? We don't have match spreads. I'll get the match spreads from Bet365, but we do have lines. Florida plus 1.5 minus 170. Subliners minus 1.5 plus 130. Florida to win plus 135. Subliners minus 175. Over 3.5 minus 325. Under 3.5 plus 230. Now, it will surprise no one to know that my model definitely favors subliners here. I've got them about a 62% chance to win, about a minus 155. They're minus 175. That's about right. But I am I am really like when I first saw this line, and I think the lines came up basically the Tuesday after the major. When I first saw this line, my first instinct was, okay, we're betting subliners here, because it was closer. This line has moved towards the subliners, but like after everything I've seen with this subliners team, and there's now rumors that it's all falling apart. There were rumored team changes that those didn't happen. There's rumors about Hydra being unhappy. I mean, to be fair, that's kind of an old rumor. It's not really a recent one, but like I think this team is done. Like this is really concerning, right? Every single one of these matches is do or die. And can I see this subliners team getting it up and winning? Sure. But like I'm concerned. Like this Florida is do or die for this Florida team too. But like if this subliners team is just decided, because again their biggest chance to get points was the major, right? And they blew major 3, right? So their other chances is they're basically gonna have to go undefeated in group stage, and that's it. Like they have to basically go undefeated here, and they have to make something at the major, and then hope for a bunch of things to go right for them, and then they can get through. Quick update about that too. So if you look at clinching scenarios, FaZe has actually already clinched a spot in champs. They've already clinched, which again, to be fair, isn't particularly newsworthy, but it is true that they have clinched a spot for champs. FaZe has clinched because basically the team in ninth. The way you can calculate this is the team in ninth place, which is Minnesota at 110 points. They cannot get. Basically, you can go undefeated through the stage, so that's 50 points, and then you can get 65 points at the major itself. So basically, that is another. You could basically only get 100 and what would that be? 100 and 115
15?
points.
Yeah.
So you cannot get. Um,
They could
yeah.
get to 225, which would be where Optic is right now. But yeah,
Yes. FaZe is
FaZe are a
clinched.
lock, like an absolute lock. Yeah,
No,
clinched.
they have clinched. Optic has also won too. They've also locked in champs too, for the simple reason that while Minnesota could overtake them, it would then not be enough for Thieves, the eighth place team, to overtake them. So cause the thing is, by winning the major, Minnesota would have just enough to overtake them. They'd have 235 points versus Optic. But at that point in time, then because they won, then the most points Thieves could have would be Thieves would only be able to have basically 100 points. So then at that point, then they would still have 5 points less than Optic. So the Optic has actually clinched.
Yeah,
Again, it doesn't. This is insane because clearly Optic is going to win a game, so it doesn't matter. But Surge is also close. Basically, within a week or two, Surge could probably be clinching as well. But yeah, subliners, they're down to 70. Right now, the line is at 120, so they're 50 points away from being in the race itself. Plus, then you're in the race, but then you also have to worry about the other teams. Now, there's some teams that are falling. There's Breech, there's Gorillas. There's a couple teams that are falling down to. They're basically falling around you. But still, though, even with that, you're still gonna need 7. Like, assuming LAG goes 0-5 and then goes 0-1 at the major, you still need to go. Basically need, what would that be? 50, and you need basically 60 some odd points to overtake, 60 or 70 points to overtake LAG, and that's assuming that the other teams can't overtake them as well. So like it's not fun. It is not fun at all for the subliners here. They seem to be in really bad straits here. What are your thoughts on this game? Are you with me on Florida? Like you just can't lay the money with the subliners, or do you wanna lay the chalk with the subliners?
Yeah, no, it's Mutineers for me. Yeah, I was interested to see, so you have subliners around 60-ish% win probability. I have Florida actually on the other side at a 60%. So, um, maybe split the difference and call it a 50-50, which we've been calling all year. A lot of these matches do feel like 50-50s and are 50-50s. And yeah, this one could very well be one of them. I do think 60-40 in favor of Florida is a bit high for what my model is saying. Mostly due to the fact that like Florida is swapping out half of their team, leading into this major, right? Vivid is out, Dave Patty is out. In replace of those guys is a guy named Too Real, who apparently will be Vivid's replacement, and then Major Maniac, welcome back. He'll be taking over the main AR role for Dave Patty. So we'll see how that shakes out. They still have Awakening, who's amazing. They still have Skies, who is very good. Um, but yeah, the Subliners team again looked very dangerous at the Pro Am, right? The midseason tournament. Outside of that, not a whole lot. So yeah, I'll take the team with the plus next to their name, and that's Florida. Right now, I see plus 135. I do like that, but yeah, what a way to start off the weekend in week one. This is a hugely, consequential match because these teams are 10th and 11th in the standings. Granted, there is a bit of a gap between them, but if you're subliners, like this is one you got to have, right? You play Florida this stage, you play LAG later in the weekend. Those two you gotta take. Then their schedule gets pretty tough. Week two, they get Seattle, they get Optic. They might not win either of those games, and then they close it out in week three with LA Thieves, another you have to have it game. So it's a big weekend for New York. I do worry if they finish 1-1 on the weekend. Like, good for you. You made up ground on one of the teams in front of you, but you really gotta pick up the pace from here on out. The way I kind of think of it is like, okay, in New York's next, let's say, 7 games, they probably have to win like 5 of those to be in an okay spot to make champs. Like if it's anything short of that, like you're just not making up the ground you need to make. But yeah, I'll side with Mutineers here. And if that's the case, if Mutineers take this, like it's it's not curtains for the subliners, but we're really getting close to that point with them.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting call on this. I think like I'm interested as to why. I'd be interested to see why your model actually does have Florida favorites in this. That's kind of interesting. But regardless, I think that's a more math thing. But I'm very concerned about this subliners team. I think this subliners team is in trouble, and I don't think that I don't think we're gonna see this subliners team for very long. I think this subliners team could potentially break apart, and if it does, then if they lose this game, they're functionally out of champs. Basically, is the key, right? Now again, they're gonna have Seattle. They have a couple other. They have Optic and they have Thieves. So they're of all the ones who are hosting a major, there's actually kind of the tougher path. But like again, it's very difficult. It's hard to see, but I could just kind of see this team just kind of giving up. But to be fair, it is their major. Maybe they won't. I don't know. I could see them losing this game though. That being said, this Florida team though obviously made a team change with um, Major Maniac and Too Real coming in. I don't. I'm not. We've talked a lot about Major Maniac. We said he was the problem at Minnesota. That turned out to be true. I I'm iffy on him here, but I think again this is one game. Don't we're not asking if we think Florida can win the major here. We're asking if they can beat a subliners team that's kind of reeling. One other thing that I will add here is that guess which team is on the Betway boost this week? It,
Subliner?
yep, subliners versus Florida. So the
Yeah.
Betway boost is subliners versus Florida, Optic versus Boston, and Toronto Ultra versus London to all to win. And that is at plus 150. God, that's horrible. Holy, that's a horrible boost.
Yeah. Part of here's I just want to make one thing clear on New York. So my model has hated them all year. And part of it is I'm using numbers with this team when Clay was on, when Neptune was on. I take every game into account when, putting in the values for these teams and where they rank in hardpoint and search and control. Um, but like I'll say it again. I say it every time we talk. Like that pro am win that they did. They went perfect, right? I believe they went 6-0, win the thing. It's a new lineup. Everyone's like, "Oh my goodness, New York are back." That win was like 6-0 is impressive, but their wins weren't convincing. Like a lot of squeakers, very similar to how LAG won Major 2, right? They get knocked down to losers bracket, they go 6-0 and win. It's like this Vanguard game kind of just does that. A lot of this, honestly, is toss ups. Like you do get coin flips here and there. And it does take some luck. And I think they got it that weekend. But just going like comparing New York's win percentage versus where they rank in terms of my power score, they're, exceeding expectations in every game mode, which means like things will come back down to earth and they'll start losing more. At least that's what I think, right? Like they're squeaking out wins in hardpoint. They're squeaking out wins in search and destroy when they are winning. That's already not a good game mode for them. And then control, right? It's concerning on a number of levels because they've played Berlin one time since it's been in the map rotation. Granted, they won it pretty nicely, but that's an auto veto for them essentially. And their other two maps have been good, not great. Again, losing more rounds than they're winning most of the time, yet winning games. It's just a lot of, variability that, can come back down to earth and bite them. And yeah, I do worry with this team. And Florida Mutineers are a very winnable game for them right away, this weekend, first match out of any. Especially with a new team with the Mutineers, right? Major Maniac plays at a very slow pace. You think about a guy like Awakening and even Skies is a pretty fast player. Like there might be a pacing issue with that team. They might have to rework their map set a little bit. Or maybe Major Maniac helps with their search and destroy tactics. That's a game mode that Mutineers have been really bad at all year. Um, and then you bring in this Too Real guy who I honestly don't know much about, but Florida Mutineers seem to have a good eye for bringing in young talent. Think Pharaoh and MW. They brought in Awakening into the league. They bought into these young guys who showed out. So maybe this guy, Too Real, I'm not saying he's going to be Awakening, but like the Mutineers, scouting department, if you want to call it, has been very good as of late. So yeah, I'm curious to see how this plays out, but it's less so about like I like Mutineers and more so just like this subliners team. There are stats that really concern me, and they're already in a bad spot in the standings, and their schedule is not super easy. But again, they can have a good qualifying stage, go hot at the major, and now we're talking about them as the 8 seed or 7 seed going into champ. So that's the fun thing about this is like even teams that have not looked good outside of Paris have a legit shot to, make champs. So we'll see if that shakes out, but I will side with Mutineers here for sure.
Yeah. It's it's gonna be interesting. This is an interesting match. Right off the bat. Now that being said, it's immediately followed by two really boring matches. Optic versus Boston. Optic minus 2.5 plus 140, plus Boston plus 2.5 minus 185. Boston minus 650 on the money line. Boston plus 400. Over 3.5 minus 155. Under 3.5 plus 120. Ah, God. I mean, this is interesting 'cause again, we just talked about this with Capsiddle. He was the favorite for Rookie of the Year, and on the bench he sits. Um, I I don't even like. This is just a I like the model has this as like a blowout. I got this as basically an Optic 3-1. I don't know which map Boston's gonna win though. They're basically it's one of the ones where it's like a technical 3-1, but I've got Optic with an 82% chance to win this. So the -1.5 is too steep. You're paying like -240. That maybe could be a parlay piece somewhere. But like I don't want to like I think Optic could definitely win this 3-0. This is where you could potentially look at a couple spreads like map 1 -30. Yeah, I mean they're gonna be with Vivid, which is cool because they're gonna have the ability to just kill. Like Vivid goes out there and just kills people, so maybe he could do something. I don't know. Map for search and destroy Optic -1.5 -1.2. That's actually pretty impressive. This is on Bet365 though. There's no lines on. There's no map spreads on Bovada. Um, yeah, I'm leaning Optic here. I just don't see how this Boston team, and again, this Boston team showed a lot of promise, but they've just fallen and really fallen hard here. Do you give them any hope here, or do you think this is just going to be a very quick match after the first one we have there on Friday?
I do give him a little hope. I've got Optic at a 75% chance to win. So, 1 in 4 shot Boston maybe pulls out the upset, which isn't nothing, right? Like that happens all the time. Or 25% of the time, I should say. But like, yeah, you're right. Like Boston, they're at the low point in the year for them, for sure. They were solid at major one, solid at major two, and then for whatever reason, since the pro am, really, they've fallen off quite a bit. They bench Capsital, they bring in Vivid. That to me is a questionable move. Just looking at our player grades we have for those guys, and granted, a lot of this is team dependent and that sort of thing. Capsital on the year has had a 102 grade. A 100 grade would be average. So he's just above average, playing that main SMG role, which is hard. Vivid, very close to the bottom. He has an 84 grade. He doesn't have a map. Like you go map by map, he does not have one map that's above a 100 grade. Granted, he does play very fast. He shoots very accurately, but he does get caught out a lot. He does get in like if you want to call them death loops quite a bit, where he or putting getting put in the blender, as some guys like to say. Like that does happen from time to time. So we'll see if that switch helps. But this Boston team, I think if you're gonna play this one, like maybe sprinkle a little on Breech, which I know that's crazy just based on how they've played recently and all that. But like we get the unknown of a roster move. Optic is holding their roster from what we just saw because Illy's thumb is still not working properly, and so Prolude's coming back in. So we know that Optic team, it's very good, obviously. This Boston team, I think with a roster move and getting Optic right away, like this is I think when you want to play those really good teams, just when you're coming in fresh week 1, day 1, let's take out Optic right now. Like if there's a time to play the best team in the game or one of the best, take them out right now, right away. Granted I don't love it, but if you're going to make me pick, I'll slightly lean to Boston, but mostly a stay away. I think I'll just probably watch Optic win this 3-1 and move on to the next game anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think yeah, I don't know. The thing of it is, you hate to lay a -2.5 at +140 though. That just feels bad. But uh, sometimes you have to lay it, right? And that's the thing. So moving on to the last match we have on Friday, we have Ultra versus LAG. Ultra -1.5 -170. LAG +1.5 +130. Ultra -525 on the money line. LAG +340. Over 3.5 -200. Under 3.5 +150. Again, I like the -1.5 here. I am not particularly pleased with LAG's team changes. I don't think this was the right. They didn't address the right problems. They didn't change anything really. This team has issues, and I don't think the problem was gunless and a seam. I mean, they need to make a change, but I don't mind the -1.5. Maybe look at a couple spreads here. I betting a minus Toronto hardpoint spread is always a little terrifying. But you could bet Toronto -1.5 and the search at -150, but nah, it's not great. There's not a lot of value here. Maybe 1.5. What is the -2.5 alt line here? -2.5 plus 180. That's not horrible. That's not great though. Definitely not. You're definitely not making bank on that, but it's something you can maybe splash on. I could see the Optic Boston being a 3-0 and then Toronto LAG being a 3-0. What are your thoughts on this? Do you see LAG having any sort of positive change? Have they made a team change, or do you think this is just a desperation move by them?
Yeah, I think they had to make some sort of change, right? Like they made a change in Major 2 and then won the major, stuck with that roster for a while, did not look great after the major. Switch it back, they still don't look great, so maybe you go switch it up like crazy cuz I think we'd be more concerned, right, if they just hadn't done anything. Cuz this is a team that has been sliding very hard since winning Major 2. Um, so I think they got to try something. I don't hate it, right? Asim and Gunless are out in place of Spart and Neptune, right? Spart was the kind of the key to winning Major 2. Granted, everyone's going to say like, well, he brought in the Volk and that is what won them the major, and very well so. That could have been it, that they just were ahead of the meta, and teams couldn't catch up. And then Neptune comes in, who right, obviously did not look good with New York earlier this year. Um, Maybe just with a different team dynamic. This team will be a little younger, maybe a little more laid back with Slasher at the helm. Um, you've got Hook there. It's less, Clay and Krim just like devouring each other, and you're playing second fiddle to Hydra, who's the only good player. Like that New York team to start the year, very dysfunctional. So maybe Neptune can slide into this team and look okay. So I don't mind it. I actually think I'm not picking LAG to win this series, but at the prices that are listed, I don't hate it. Especially the +1.5, I see at +130. Because this Toronto team, they have bounced back nicely since their mid-season slide. Um, but again, this same Toronto team we've seen go ice cold sometimes. Granted, this LAG team has been, you know, colder for longer periods of time, but maybe this new roster can ignite something and maybe they pull off the upset. But +1.5, I think, is very attainable. The hard points and the search and destroys, I think, can be pretty close. I think there's obviously a big discrepancy in control. I have Toronto at a 70% chance to win the control, whatever map it is. Um, so yeah, I lean Toronto to win the series, but I think they might do it in 5 maps. So if that's the case, I'll back LAG with a +1.5. I don't love it. It definitely feels gross, but yeah, it's more so just again, Toronto's looking good. Their stock's going up a little bit. LAG fading, but maybe they can improve their stock with this roster move. And again, if you're going to play one of the better teams in the league, like a Toronto Ultra, maybe do it on day one, right when you've got all this time to prepare. And I don't know. I lean slightly with every underdog on day one. Odds are probably one of them wins, but hey, if two of them win, it's a nice payday. So that's kind of where I lean with Friday's games, but I'm not like feeling real strong about any of them.
Yeah, I. It's the thing of it is we were at a point last year where we could just figure out who was going to win any of these games beforehand. It just called it the chalk league, and these games just scream to me like Optic 3-0, Ultra 3-0, and like whatever this Florida Subliners game is probably going to be something weird where like maybe Florida will win 3-0 or something and then that'll be it. We'll get a 9-game Friday. But like yeah, something weird's going to happen. Like one of those teams is just going to destroy the other team and then um these could just be blowouts too. So that could be interesting for there. His first game on Saturday, Ultra playing again straight for some reason. They're playing Ravens, this new look slash retro look London Ravens. Ultra -1.5, -200. So they are bigger favorites against the Ravens than they are against LAG. That's important to remember. Ravens +1.5, +150. Ultra on the money line at -500. Ravens on the money line +320. Over 4.5, +230. Under 4.5, -325. I I actually really like London here. I
Same.
yeah, I'm as an Ultra fan, I know this is coming. You see this coming and you're like, okay. See, this is one of the reasons why I like the London at 250 to 1 because like if they win this game, then they'll go on and they'll like do something like they'll go on like they'll go maybe 4-1 in the stage, and then that match against FaZe, that'll be an interesting match too. They'll be in the winners bracket, and then they're maybe a hop skip and a jump away from winning the event, right? They maybe even making the finals, right? Depending on what happens with like Seattle, whatever. But yeah, no, this is like I am scared. This is the exact like this is a trap for Toronto. This is 100% a trap. This is like, oh look, here's this London team that's failing. We're gonna go crush them. And then how we've seen this. Like London has been one of the kryptonites of Toronto. London and FaZe have been definitely that. Yeah, no, 100% Ravens +1.5. Ravens different spreads. I don't know. We have a Ultra Ravens hard point spread. I'm getting 22.5. That's really low. That's actually kind of a low spread. London Ravens search and destroy +1.5, +120. That's not horrible either. +240 on the control. Toronto's actually been kind of rough in control. Um, yeah, London. I think we're both on London here, but we're both kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts here?
for sure. I am with you on London, and yeah, just like here's a good way to think about it, right? Like Toronto plays LA Gorillas and London Royal Ravens this weekend, which, if you're a Toronto fan and you look at that schedule, you go, "Oh, that's a really nice weekend for us to maybe start 2-0 and be well on our way to a winners bracket." At the same time, it's like, very realistic shot that they're 1-1 on the weekend. And that's not, maybe it's a little bit of a disappointment because you'd like to be 2-0. But in this league where, every team that's not named Paris has looked good this year, like, yeah, like if their opponents are plus 340 and plus 320 and one of them wins, like that's a nice payday. I'm not gonna just take one of them. I'm gonna just take both and hope that one of them, can come through. And maybe that's day 1 with LAG, right, if Toronto get caught off guard, or maybe Toronto, is a cakewalk for LAG, like, and then they come out and London all of a sudden look like what they did early in the year, and they get caught by surprise. It's like, yeah, those kind of things happen this year. It's Vanguard. So I'm with you completely with London. I have a lot more comfort taking the Ravens over taking like Gorillas versus Toronto. Um, but yeah, I mean, this team, can they find the magic that they had early in the year? Maybe, we'll see. With Gizmo, they did start to slide, post major one. But there were some mental health issues going on with Gizmo, and he had some family stuff going on. He had to get benched. They bring in Paul X. They look good again. He gets dropped. Now they do this thing with Harry that has not looked super impressive. And yeah, it just kind of made sense to like, hey, let's get the band back together. Let's see if we can, you know, find that spark that led us to success early in the year. So yeah, I'm with you 100% on London Royal Ravens here.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Subliners versus LAG. Subliners -1.5, -150. LAG +1.5, +115. Subliners -310 on the money line. LAG +225. Over 3.5, -240. Under 3.5, +180. This is interesting. I've got New York as a pretty heavy favorite here, about a -730. So I see value in the money line, probably value in I think this is a 3-0, 3-1. So there's definitely some value in the -1.5. You could potentially even ride that up to the minus 2.5. What is the -2.5 in this matchup? Probably maybe plus 200, plus 230. Actually, I kind of like the plus 230 there. But the other thing is the fact that you'll get an even better price here if the subliners beat them. If Florida beats the subliners, you're gonna get an even better price on this match. So I would wait for that. But yeah, this like screams to me bounce back for the subliners after they lose to Florida, and then they try to make a bounce. Like they lose, and then like, oh crap, we need to do something, and then they beat. Then they just they just crush the Gorillas. What are your thoughts on it? Or yeah, because I've even forgotten about Like, there's been so many team changes, I forgot that Neptune's on the Gorillas, right? And we had him as one of the worst players in the league. He's now on his third team. Is he like the Micah Glennon of the CDL? Like, how does he keep getting picked up? Like, I don't understand. It's probably not Mike Glennon. Maybe it's not Glennon. It'd be like
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
no, not Fitzpatrick. No, it'd be like Fitzpatrick actually okay. Who's like a young quarterback who's like horrible that like just keeps bouncing between teams.
Mitch Trubisky.
And maybe
Bears, Bills, Steelers, and he's like 25 years old. I mean,
Trubisky is kind of that. That's close. It'd be like Trubisky. It'd be like Drew Lock. There it is, Drew Lock. He's the Drew Lock of the of the CDL. That's
I like Trubisky more. Drew Lock had like a couple nice games his rookie year, and besides that, he's been a joke. Neptune, I think, is like he's a solid player. I do really think though that like earlier this year, that New York team was just dysfunctional, and Neptune just kind of had to like be there, right? Like you're sitting next to Hydra, who is by far the best player on the team. You've got these two old guys screaming at each other, trying to figure out what strats to use. And, Krim goes and drops Clay, and Neptune's numbers were bad. But, like, I think part of that is the situation. And he, although I think got along well with Hydra and decent with those other guys, like, I don't know. It was just a nightmare from the start for that team. So I do really think this is a better spot for Neptune to land, and it's a revenge game. So that's exciting. Um, yeah, I don't know. I kind of lean LAG here again. It's hard for me to not go with the dogs this weekend, I guess, but kind of the same argument I made with the Toronto matches, right? Like they get LAG and they get London. If I back the underdogs, I need one of them to win. If so, I'm a happy guy. Same thing with subliners, right? Like their first couple matches, they get Mutineers, they get LAG, which if you're a subliners fan, you're like, okay, we can beat those teams. They're both, making roster moves that might not work out. We're holding steady with the team that has looked somewhat decent this year. And these are teams that we need to catch. So let's get them right now. On the flip side, it's like very good chance you finish the weekend 1-1. I don't know if it's going to be LAG that gets you. I don't know if it's going to be Mutineers. Probably Mutineers, I guess. But I don't mind just backing both sides and seeing what sticks. Uh, that being said, right, it is hard to back an LAG team that just hasn't shown much, right, all year. Their search and destroy, even in their slumps, has been very impressive. I think they have a pretty clear edge over New York in that game mode, but otherwise, the control I think goes to subliners despite what I said earlier about, they just auto ban Berlin. They're still decent on those other two maps, whereas LA Gorillas honestly don't have a good control map to go to, or if they do, it just gets vetoed automatically. And then the hard points, I do think you have to give the edge to subliners in that category. So yeah, when all is said and done, it's probably a subliners, 3-1. But again, would not shock me if LAG push to that game 5, and if it gets that far, like I don't hate LAG to win that match. Granted, with roster moves, you do worry maybe a little bit more about your search and destroy than the other modes. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Roster moves cause a lot of chaos, but part of the chaos makes me, more interested in those big underdogs. So LAG slight lean here, but we'll see. Again, a hugely consequential match. That'll be fun to watch. If New York lose the day before, then it's like, yeah, this this is it for them. They got to start winning. and this is a good team to get back on track with for sure. Um, and then kind of the opposite for LAG, right? You're sliding down the standings. Can you stop the slide? Like, yeah. And not only can you stop the slide, you can essentially bury a team that's already underneath you that, you have to stay on top of. So, yeah, very, very interesting matches for New York this weekend. And, we'll see if they can go 2-0, but I have my doubts.
Yeah, this actually will be an interesting matchup, right? I mean, these are two teams that are fighting for champs. If the Gorillas beat the Subliners, it's just kind of driving another stake into their chances for champs. If Subliners beat Gorillas, it's just going to keep this. It's going to keep this whole thing on life support, right? Just a little longer, right? So, on the whole, like Subliners to champs. So let's see what the results of this game are. This one could be an interesting one. It'll definitely be hyped by the casters for it as well. Next up, 6 o'clock on Saturday. Optic versus Minnesota. Optic -1.5, -135. Minnesota +1.5, +105. Minus Texas -240 on the money line. Minnesota +180. Over 3.5 -275. Under 3.5 +200. This one's a bit of a tough one.
Two teams that were on a collision course last major, Robert,
I I s-
according to you.
I said that, and they kind of were. I mean, it's
A
actually kind.
losers bracket one,
Yeah, the
maybe.
losers bracket collision course. I mean, yeah, I thought they were, and it turns out that they were not. They were both sent to the losers bracket, and I think Minnesota immediately ran into Toronto and got crushed. So yeah, that's not fun. Optic did win, I think, the round one losers bracket, but then I think they lost in round two to,
Ooh, Thieves, maybe? I don't know.
was it Thieves? No,
Let me look it up. Minnesota lose to Thieves right away. Then they
lose to
beat
Toronto.
Boston. Then they
Oh,
lose to
okay.
Toronto. Optic lose to Florida, another upset. Take out LAG very easily, and then um, take out London as well, and then lose to Thieves. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, Thieves
So
did.
a better major for Optic than Minnesota, but still, right, not great for either. But now they get to play each other, so kind of exciting.
Yeah, that Optic Thieves matchup is so crazy to try to figure out who's actually going to win it on any given day.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing of it is my model has Minnesota as a slight favorite here. I have them as like -106. They're at +180, so there's some value in Minnesota money line probably. The thing of it is, I feel like both of these teams are like online. Like both these teams are doing much better online than they are in on LAN, and I think that's something the model needs to work on going forward because we're now seeing it where Optic has been dominant. I think they've maybe lost, or no, I think they've been undefeated the last two stages, and then they've both times they've lost winners round one, and that is concerning. I mean, again, if you're doing so well online, but then you're losing the second you go into a play in online, the second you go on land, that suggests that your team is more benefited online. And again, to be fair, they are based in Texas. A lot of the servers are based in Texas, so they could be getting some advantageous server pings. Again, that's not enough to get them to go 5-0, but you start questioning some of this stuff where it's like maybe this Optic team isn't necessarily as good as we thought. Now that being said, of course, this match is online, so whatever, right? It's online, but also it's Minnesota. I'm gonna lean Minnesota here. I think Minnesota could give them a pretty good fight either way. I mean, Optic's probably gonna clean up Breach, but I wouldn't hate putting something on Minnesota here. Maybe even on the money line. Definitely on the +1.5. What are your thoughts here? Are you with me on Minnesota, or are we gonna go with Texas and the chalk?
Yeah, this is the first match that I think is a stay away for me, which is a little sad because it should be, I think, a really good match. Minnesota has had Optics number over the last couple of years. Um, but yeah, I don't know. These prices are about where I need them, or where I have them set at. I have Optic at a 69% chance to win, Minnesota 31%, which lines up very nicely with the -240 and the +180. Same thing with the map spreads, like Optic -1.5 at -135 is about right because I have them winning in four maps or less about 54% of the time. So all these prices line up pretty nicely. these teams, right, their rosters are staying put from what we just saw. So, I mean, this match I think is really well like handicapped. Like there's not a lot of uncertainty that goes into this, which, you know, is I guess good for some people. Some people don't want uncertainty when they're, trying to pick a side in a match. I'm the opposite. Like if there's this much certainty, the prices are good. Granted, there is going to be a side that wins and covers and all that, but the prices you got to pay, I think, are just a little too steep on both sides. So it's mostly a stay away for me. I'm curious to see if the prices move at all leading up to it. Maybe we get that late money Optic push, which we sometimes see, um, but yeah, I don't know. Outside of like, I suppose maybe the line has moved a little, and I've just missed it because the thought was Illy is coming back, and Prolude's taking the bench again. Now it's Illy's thumb is still an issue, and Prolude's coming back onto the team. So I don't know if that, changed the line a lot already or if it's going to change the line moving forward. That's something to keep an eye on. And if it does, maybe just, take whatever side gets the better payout afterwards. But when all said and done, I think this spread, this money line should stay relatively put. So stay away from me. If you're going to make me pick a side, I'll lean with you with Optic just slightly. Um, just because I don't know, I like with this Minnesota team, hot and cold a lot. Optic, you're right, like they've looked not so great on LAN. The whole thing about like LAN versus online though does kind of bug me just because like I don't know, the LAN games, it's such a small sample size when you're talking about LAN. And let's not forget Optic were perfect at Major 1 and that was on LAN in front of their home fans in their home city. How much home field advantage is there in COD? I don't think there's a lot, but maybe that crowd mattered. That being said, they dominated that event. Since then, Optic, right? Yeah, they've gone down to losers bracket right away, made some nice runs, and eventually came up short. Um, Minnesota, though, I'd argue they're more of an onliners team. I'm pretty sure they have one win at a major this year, and it was at the last one. I could be wrong, but I know Major 2, the one that they hosted, they started in losers bracket and got bounced immediately. I believe by this Optic team who fell down to losers bracket. And then Major 1, I'm pretty sure Minnesota started in winners bracket, but I think they might have gotten bounced twice, like just lose right away. I could be wrong on that, but this Minnesota team has struggled at majors, which is why they are struggling in the standings because you do get, a little bit of a points bump from the majors. So, I could argue both ways on this one. But yeah, it's a wait and see for me. See if these prices move. If so, maybe I'll lean one way or the other. But for now, it's mostly a stay away. So.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm leaning Minnesota in it, but I could definitely see Optic winning it. So that could be that's gonna be an interesting matchup for me for sure. Next up, Thieves versus Breech. I remember a couple weeks ago when we had this and Thieves were even money to beat Breech, and they crushed them 3-0. Now it's Thieves minus 1.5, minus 110. Boston plus 1.5, minus 120. Thieves minus 210 on the money line. Breech plus 160. Over 3.5, minus 275. Under 3.5, plus 200. I love Thieves here. This is this is gonna be bad. Give me Thieves everything. Maybe even Thieves money line. Like Thieves money line, Thieves minus 1.5. Thieves alt spreads in some of this minus 2.5 is plus 275. Yeah, this is gonna get ugly. And on Bet365 the spread is only 15.5 points. Search and Destroy minus 1.5 plus 125. Just great prices. Just I again we're betting against this Boston team. I don't they think that Vivid was the solution. I just don't think Vivid was the solution. Or like that's not the problem with this Boston team. The problem with this Boston team is the TJ is just too inconsistent, and by bringing in Vivid, that's definitely not fixing TJ. So I don't know what we're doing here, but what are your thoughts on this? Are you with me on Thieves just crushing Boston here? Or do you think Boston is due for some positive regression?
Yeah, this one's tough for me because the model screams that there's value on Boston. The model says this is a 50-50, which honestly, like, it might be just based on what we've seen this year with a lot of these games where it's all these teams in the middle facing off against each other. But yeah, you make a good point with the Boston roster move. I Yeah, I don't know, man. Like Nero too, not just TJ, but like Nero, like they have not been impressive all year, and Capsule has shown up in some maps and carried them at times. Now you bench him, you put in Vivid. I don't know, man. I do worry about it a lot. So I don't know if I have the guts to swallow a -210 or a -110 with the map spread. I get with Thieves, though, that the -1.5 is a little more appetizing just because, they're a better hardpoint team, a better control team than they are a search team. So if they do win, a lot of times they get it done in four. Uh, but I don't know. Like, we've seen this Thieves team go ice cold. Like I can say that with every team. Like Boston's been ice cold very recently. Thieves, like let's not forget that they went like 1-4 in the major two qualifiers. You know, maybe I think won a game and then lost. Like every team hits that low point. Boston is at theirs. The problem that like I'm always thinking like, okay, they're at their low point, they're gonna bounce back. With Boston and these roster moves, I don't know if they are. Um, like they might just plateau or whatever that would be. But if you're down in the hill, like they'll just valley out the rest of the year with this roster. Um, so yeah, I lean Thieves to win, but I don't know if I have the guts to take the price point. So again, maybe just a fade. If Here's what I'll say: if Boston gets rocked by Optic earlier in the week, this price point could go out to plus 200 or more. Then the guy in me is saying like, all right, Boston looked horrible. Maybe they won't look so horrible against Thieves. Maybe they can cover a plus 1.5 map spread. Maybe they can cover some individual maps. I don't know. I might come back on Boston if they do look really bad versus Optic, which I know sounds dumb, but like the prices just get out of control because guys see what a team looks like with a new roster or what they just looked like a day before and go, okay, well, there's no chance they win the next day or even make it close. And a lot of times we see these teams make it close. But yeah, this Boston team is hard to figure out. I worry about their champs futures. It's a team I worry about too much to like back in any way. But this Thieves team is still just, I'm not quite there with them yet. Um, Major 3 was good to them. The qualifiers were solid, but I don't know. I'm always wanting more with the Thieves. But yeah, that's all I got to say. If you want to go on Thieves, I get it. If you want to take Boston, do it with caution. Um, but yeah, again, a pretty important match here with these teams hovering in the middle of the standings. But, if one of them gets cold, which very well could be the Boston Breach, then that slide starts to happen and you start to worry about their champs placements. But um, yeah, again, no lean. If you want to go Thieves, by all means, go with it.
Yeah, I agree with Thieves, but I kind of do agree with the points you're making though, right? Like I'm not completely taken with this Thieves team, but like if we're just gonna sit here and we're just gonna keep betting against Boston, like that's making a lot of money, right? Like this Boston team is doing nothing, right? So
Yeah, you're essentially just like betting against the moves that they've made, right? Dropping Capsule, putting in Vivid. Like you're just saying, like, that was a bad move. Let me bet against that being a good move. And yeah, and I think you're right, because I think TJ and Nero maybe should have gone before Capsule, but we'll see. They might make us eat our words here in a week.
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, again, it will be interesting to see in the off season for this Boston team if like because I know Methods and TJ are friends and they team together, and the question is TJ gonna like? 'Cause here's the thing, and I don't know if if Methods has realized this, but like if TJ's holding him back, like do you keep TJ? Like, or is he like, no, 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 we're gonna ride with him? He's like, that's the thing, right? So it's an
Yeah,
interesting decision.
we have like 3 years of data now that suggests that TJ is a fine play, like, nothing special. Like, he's not horrendous, but
No.
he's not, like, adding anything to your team. He's just, like, capping your upside at that point, and it's like, yeah, at some point, you gotta cut the dead weight, to put it bluntly,
Well,
but yeah, if they're buddies, it's hard to do that, I guess, so
TJ has gone on insane streaks. Like I remember one time in one match, I think I had either bet against. I was betting against Boston. I think it was like maybe London versus Boston or something. It was a while ago. It was like early on in this year, and there was something where like TJ started a game and he was like 18-5, and I'm like, no, no, no. Regression's gonna come for TJ, and then sure enough, he ends the game up negative, right? And like that's the perfect encapsulation of TJ, right? He'll go on streaks. He'll have a crazy, insane map, and then he'll have the bad maps. He'll have like he'll have like a 10 and 20 map, right? Like he'll have really good maps and really bad maps. The problem is that for him, like for some of these players, there's no in between. It's the same kind of issue with Asim, but Asim actually has a higher upside than TJ because while Asim can actually have an amazing map where he goes like 30 and 15, TJ will like he'll have an amazing half of a map and then he won't be able to close it out, right? So yeah, TJ is interesting. We'll have to talk at the end of the year about team changes going forward and stuff like that. But anyways, moving on to the last three matches of the weekend here. Um, we've got Seattle versus Paris. I don't know why this match is being played. I mean, here's the thing, right? So Seattle minus 2.5, minus 150. Paris plus 2.5, plus 115. Seattle minus 200 on the money line. Paris plus 800 on the money line. Over 4.5, plus 550. Under 4.5, minus 1,000. That's actually lower than it is on Bet365. The lines are the same. The spreads are the same, but Seattle is minus 3,300 on the money line. On my book, well, on my model, what do I have? I have Seattle as a 96% chance to win this. I've got them as 3-0. I've got it 250 to 172, 6-2, and 6-1. I this is kind of unbettable. Like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna lay 47.5 points on game one, 2.5 minus 2.5 on the search and destroy? That's insane. I this is kind of unbettable. I think the only option here is like Paris plus 2.5 plus 110. Just let them win a map. Sometimes they win a map, right? But like sometimes they
yes.
don't. So
So, you mentioned that bet right at the end there that has me a little interested, and that's the plus 2.5 with Paris. So it's not. I'm kind of excited because I don't like to talk about Paris or back them in any way, shape, or form. But the model that I have, which again takes into account every match that you've played this year, so it takes into account all the Paris rosters that have existed, and it basically pools it together and says, okay, this is Paris Legion this year. This is how good they are at hardpoint, at search, at control. So Paris are huge underdogs in every game mode, obviously. I have them 30% to win a hardpoint, just, at an unknown map. They got a 3 in 10 chance to win it. Search and destroy, they have about a 1 in 4 chance to win it, regardless of the map. Granted, if it's their map pick, maybe that you boost that up to a 1 in 3 chance they win. And then control, they're, a 15% chance to win. They're horrendous at that game mode. They don't have a good map to go to. Like, it's bad. Paris are making a roster change, and that might go under the radar because they're such a bad team and like they cannot make champ. I mean, they can make champs, but they aren't making champs. But yeah, John is out in replace for Johnny. So not much on the name change, but like who knows? This Johnny guy might just come out and bring the fire and Paris lose 3-1. And you go, oh, well, for plus 2.5, that's fine. So I have Paris covering the 2.5 57% of the time. And the fact that I'm getting plus money on it makes it a value. So that might be the one way I take this game. Again, it's Paris, so be careful. Um, but like there's some uncertainty, which I like when I'm taking an underdog. And the Seattle team is at a high point. right? Like they just are coming off of a major 3 win. They didn't lose a map that tournament. They only lost one qualifier match. Like they're at their peak. Paris is very much in the basement because I mean, they've looked horrible all year, but they haven't won in forever. And, maybe this is a match where, hey, they get one of those first 3 maps, pack it in map 4, and call it a day. And that's all we're looking for. So that's what I'll say with Paris. I don't want to spend any more time on it because there's nothing else to say. It's just, can they win a map? I think yes. Just
That
one. I just need one, Robert.
I think that's the best because you don't want to start laying like minus 150, minus 2.5. That's insane. I think Paris can win a map. They could. I mean, they usually win map one. Their odds to win map one are plus 350, plus 47.5. That's a lot, awful lot of points for a hard point in Vanguard. Um, maybe that's something I don't know, but
Yeah, especially if it's a Bocage, like Paris might just want to square up on Bocage map 1 with a new player. Like,
then lose by
granted,
100 points.
Seattle like to play that map and they're pretty good at it, so they could still blow them out. But Bocage, I think the average margin of victory is somewhere in the 40-point market. So if Paris just lose like an average team for one map, like yeah, they could cover that. But yeah, that's a lot to ask for a team who's not great. But yeah, just getting one of the first 3, I think is very possible.
Yeah. Moving on to the second last match of the weekend. Florida versus Minnesota. Florida plus 1.5, minus 185. Minnesota minus 1.5, plus 140. Plus 120. Florida plus 120 in the money line. Minnesota minus 155. Florida over 3.5. Over 3.5, minus 310. Under 3.5, plus 225. I've got this as Minnesota about 60%, so Minnesota minus 160. So basically basically what the betting line is. So not a lot of value there. This gets interesting though if Florida were to beat subliners. But the thing is, again, I am still not sold. Now that actually that being said, we're just realizing this is a major maniac revenge match.
I was just about to say.
Yeah,
And it's a Havoc revenge match. So what do you do there?
that's interesting. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's Havoc revenge match against. Wow, it's a double revenge match. Usually
Yeah.
that hasn't we haven't really had that happen yet. But I'm still gonna take Florida. I mean, I'm taking Minnesota. I'd take Minnesota. This is where I'd love to see Florida beat the subliners and then bet into this, and then if Minnesota beats Optic, then it comes back. Like this is how you have to bet
Yes.
this, right? Like
Yes.
you get so much when you bet the NFL, and we may or may not do NFL coverage in a couple months. But when you bet the NFL, there's different vantage points where you get value, and sometimes that value comes on Sunday night. Sometimes like Sunday night, which sometimes the lines are posted at about halftime of Sunday night football. But like if you're sitting here at midnight on a Sunday, right after Sunday night football, and you see that line and you bet that line, sometimes that by the next morning that line is gone. Sometimes if you bet a +4, by the next day that's a +3.5, and that's a 3 by Tuesday, right? This isn't so much with the CDL. There's a little bit of that. Lines actually move a lot pretty fast late in the week. But the thing of it is, whenever you're watching a match, because a lot of these teams play twice in a week, because basically 8 teams play twice in a week, you have to immediately be like, okay, this is happening. Like when you have to keep in mind the lines that are the games that are happening right now and the games that are happening on the weekend. So, for example, if you're going in there and like here's the thing, it depends on what you want to bet, right? So, for example, if you're sitting here and you're on Friday and you want to bet Florida, you think Florida's a good team. If you want to bet Major Maniac and Too Real or whatever, and you're seeing them beat up on the subliners, then you immediately go on, sign into your betting account, and to bet on Florida to beat Minnesota. Bet the spread because then you're gonna get amazing closing line value on that. Then at that point, then Florida could be basically even, or maybe even they probably wouldn't be neg money, but they'd probably be like minus. They'd be like minus one. You might get like minus 120, minus 120, minus 115, minus 150, something like that. You might have that by the time this game by basically by Saturday. And then what happens is if Minnesota beats Texas, or if Optic beats Minnesota, then that line will move further towards Florida. So theoretically, if Florida beats the subliners and then Optic beats Rocker, which are basically one of those is favored. Then basically Florida opens this game as a favorite against Minnesota, right? And the thing of it is, but that being said, though, if you want to look at Minnesota, you want Florida to beat the subliners, and then right before Optic versus Minnesota, you want to bet Minnesota against Florida because that's going to be your best price if you think Minnesota beats Optic. So this is the thing, right? It's all about timing the market and trying to figure out the best time when the lines will be the highest and the lowest, and when people are buying in. Like that's a really interesting skill set to have for the CDL specifically, and I think it benefits people. It's a really good benefit to people to be able to realize when you can bet into something and when you can't bet into something. Um, yeah. So what are your thoughts on this? Are you with are you with the Major Maniac Revenge game or the Havoc Revenge game? Which one?
I lean Havoc Revenge game. I have Minnesota favored 54%. Um, and the model actually does like the Florida plus 1.5 market a little bit, which when like I don't know, that's just like an auto stay away for me just because so many Florida games go or don't go to a map 5, I should say. Like you're just always better off just taking Florida to win quickly or to lose quickly. Um so yeah, right now this is a stay away for me. But like you mentioned, and like I say a lot of times with these Sunday games where there's a lot of games that are played before this one, and these two teams play games earlier in the weekend, like these lines could shift a lot. And if they do, I think you can make a smart play going with the team that, their price goes way, way, way high. Like I like Florida versus New York in that first match of the weekend. If Florida can pull off the upset, which I don't even think it should be called an upset, like I think that's already a 50-50 match. What are we saying? Oh, the Florida roster move worked. Like, look, they just beat New York, who has been a good team with the roster that they have. Florida come out, you probably beat them in 3 maps or 4 maps because that's what Florida does. And then Minnesota come out against Optic and, kind of expectedly lose. Yeah, now these prices could be flipped on their head where Florida's minus 155 and Minnesota's plus 120. And when that's the case, well, then I'll take Minnesota plus 120. I guess another way, if you wanted to play it like this, would be take Florida now at plus 120, hope that that scenario plays out exactly like I said, and then take Minnesota plus 120. The only thing with that is like, you don't know how far the prices are going to shift one way or the other. You could guess, but then you're hedging to make a profit, which is good, but like there's a lot of risk involved with like hoping that a scenario plays out exactly like that. But like yeah, I think that narrative of Florida come out and win with a new roster, Minnesota don't come out and beat Optic. They're still a good team, but they couldn't beat Optic. Like, yeah, I think that narrative leads to a game that's very closely contested, if not a Florida favorite. So, yeah, wait and see. And I'm just kind of hoping for that scenario to play out just so I can back Minnesota in this match. But obviously, there's a lot of games that have to be played before that happens. But yeah, that's kind of how I want to play it now. So I think we're very much on the same page with this one.
Yeah, this is a potential value opportunity. I don't believe in this Florida team, but I believe in this Minnesota team more. So we'll see. And the other thing is the fact that both these teams are actually on the outside looking in on the champs bracket. Again, not by a lot because LAG and Boston and Thieves even are just kind of sitting there. So like they're functionally in like a multi-way tie for sixth. Basically, Boston, LAG, Thieves, Minnesota, and Florida only 20 points separates Florida from Boston, right? So they're functionally all in, and then if you throw Toronto in, that's only another 10 points from there, right? So there's only 30 points separating 10th through 5th. Actually, there's only 40 points separating fourth from 10th, right? We can keep going, but you get the picture, right? It's very close, and like basically as long as you win some of your games, you put yourself in the best position at the major, and then like literally it's going to be like crazy stuff's going to happen at the major where like if someone wins this game, then like two teams get eliminated from champs or stuff like that. So it's gonna be interesting. Or like if you're gorillas, you might be waiting, or actually maybe not. You if you win a couple games this major, you could be waiting really long to see how far someone goes. But no, it's a very complicated mess in terms of who's winning what. But yeah, no, this game screams Minnesota all over it. Um, moving on, we have the last game of the week, which actually I think is kind of interesting. Thieves versus Phase. Thieves plus 1.5 plus 150. Phase minus 1.5 minus 200. Thieves plus 325 on the money line. Phase minus 500. I know it sounds crazy, but I actually I don't hate Thieves here. The thing of it is this line is bad to me. I don't think this line is set up proper. I think this line is too heavy towards Phase. I priced this at about I got Phase at about 70, so that's about a minus 230, not minus 500. So I think this line is a bad price. Um I have basically the plus 1.5 at about a 55% chance for Thieves. So and that you're getting plus 150 on that, so that's a pretty good price there, to be honest. Um, I don't hate it. I don't hate some map spreads here. Let's see what the map spreads are. This phase team has struggled 25 points for Thieves. That's not horrible. I like the search spread. Search spread is plus 1.5 minus 138. That's not horrible at all. Um, Thieves to win the control is also not bad. Again, we don't have any lines up here on Bovada, but if you can get basically Thieves plus 1.5 in the control, that would be pretty cool too. What are your thoughts on this? Are you do you think FaZe just rolls here, or do you think I think Thieves could definitely take this to a game five, or potentially even win. What do you think?
Yeah, I do kind of think it sets up nicely for Thieves, which I was surprised by when I punched in these two teams. I do see a little bit of value with Thieves, more value on the plus 1.5 at plus 150 than on the straight up money line. But yeah, Control is a great place to start for this series because Atlanta are the better Control team, just in a vacuum. I have Atlanta as the better hardpoint team, the better search team, and the better Control team. But it's not like they're significant favorites in any of those game modes. I think Thieves can hang, and especially in Control because now that we have this third map to work with, it's not just like coin flip determines Control map. And I think we definitely see a Berlin or a Gavudu Control. Like, I can't tell you which one it's going to be. I can tell you it's not Tuscan because FaZe very good on Tuscan, 11-4 this year. That's the second best win percentage on that map. Thieves 2-8. That's the 10th best win percentage. Like very drastic differences. Thieves should veto Tuscan control. If they don't, they must have something up their sleeve because that would be a big mistake. I also have Thieves as slightly better on Berlin and Gavudu. I have Thieves as the sixth best team on Berlin, FaZe at eighth, so very close, but slight favorite to Thieves. Gavudu, I have Thieves as the second best team, and FaZe as the fifth. So again, very close on those maps, but maybe the Thieves are favored in control. That's kind of crazy to think about, but if they're favored in the control and if they can just take out, their hard point pick and their search and destroy pick, like there's your path to winning this series is, you know, get the control done, win the maps you pick. That's how most teams do it when they win in five. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's a legit possibility. The only thing is I don't know how to play this, right? Because Thieves play Boston the day before. FaZe, this is their first game of the weekend, which actually makes me like Thieves a little more, just because Thieves will be warmed up against a Boston team that, they should win just based on how Boston's been performing, how we feel about the roster move in general with that Breech team. Um, so yeah, all signs point to Thieves. I don't know if I imagine Thieves will take out Boston. Maybe the Thieves number gets a little worse, so maybe it's best to take them now. Um, but part of me also says Boston might keep it close versus Thieves, and then late phase money comes in and pushes the Thieves number up. So I don't know how exactly to play it, but I definitely think Thieves is the play kind of no matter what. But it's tough, right? Because you're going against a phase team that, they're always there at the end. They're always in the grand finals. it doesn't matter what game it is, like Cold War, they dominate. Very good in Modern Warfare. They've been awesome at this game. They just have not gotten that major victory yet. But yeah, I think Thieves have a real chance to take out these guys. If not, just push it to that map 5.
That's interesting that you're so adamant that Thieves is the play. I lean Thieves, but I I worry this will go badly. Like I worry we're gonna bet Thieves and then all of a sudden it's gonna be like, okay, Phase win game 1, and we're like, oh, okay, maybe the search, and then Thieves win the search. This Thieves team is not as dominant, and it's weird because this Thieves team should be much more dominant. Like, sorry, that this Phase team should be much more dominant, and like they've made every major final now. They've lost all three of them to three different teams too. It's not like the same team, right? Like if every basically if they were 0-3 against Optic, you could definitely make the case that Optic was the best team in the league, but you can't because they've lost to teams other than Optic. And I can't get behind. I just can't get behind this Phase team. I mean, yep, okay, great. They got to the winners bracket final, so they beat Toronto, great. Then they get up against Thieves. They beat Thieves. I think they beat Thieves 3-1 if I'm not mistaken. So that's again not the greatest sign for our bet. Um, but I mean it's. Let me see if we have the bracket from the major here. Yep. So they beat Ultra, then they beat Thieves 3-0, and they and then basically, yeah, they lose 3-0 to Thieves. See, I think that's why this price is so exaggerated. That was actually a somewhat close game, if I remember correctly. Just that Thieves got some, I guess, unlucky bounces in that game. But um, they then they go on. Then they play Optic. They beat Optic 3-1, which was definitely an upset. And then they lose 3-1 to Ultra, which was extremely predictable. Ultra then actually is able to finally cover a spread against FaZe, which was also incredible. But like so this Phase team, they go through Ultra 3-1, they go through Phase, then they lose to Surge, then they beat Ultra, a team that they just keep beating, and like so like their run was not particularly impressive, right? Like if they beat a Thieves team that like is like it's weird to place this Thieves team, right? Like you're like, okay, well they're better than Optic maybe, at least Optic on land, and they're better than Rocker on land, but then they're worse than Phase. But then like basically you're just saying, okay, Phase played what, one, two, three, four, five. 5 games. Two of them were we played 5 games. Two of them are against Surge. Two of them are against Ultra. The only team outside of Ultra and Surge that FaZe didn't play was Thieves, and they beat them 3-0. So it's a weird we don't know where this Thieves team is in the grand scheme of things. Let me just call up this match for a second. Yeah, the okay, actually it got pretty bad. So it was 250 to 138 for the hard point, 6-0 for the search, and 3-0 for the control.
Yeah,
That's right.
it was a butt kicking.
That's right. I remember that.
But
But
again, that's part of the Thieves team. There are teams in this league that like a Florida, like a Thieves, like they just go really hot or really cold, and that's been Thieves for years. Like I think Kenny is just like one of the more inconsistent players where he's just red hot or he's not. And I don't know, there's something with the team dynamics with some of these teams where it's like if it's not going their way, it spirals out of control. And if it is, right, they carry that momentum. And yeah, like with this Thieves team, it could go horribly wrong and they get put in a body bag by Atlanta again. But, that's a losing bet as it would be if they lose 3-1 in a bunch of close matches. It's like you're hoping they can squeak out the win because it's probably going to be a long series if they do. But, it's no different if they lose that bad versus if they lose real close. And actually, if they lose real close, maybe in a game 5, you take the +1.5, you get a nice payout for that. So trying to, yeah, like work the line of, okay, we don't quite know how good Thieves are going to be because some days they look like the second or third best team in the league. Sometimes they look like the 10th best team in the league. But trying to figure out, like, okay, control, they might have an advantage there despite Atlanta being very good at that game mode. And then you work out the logic of, like, Thieves aren't a horrible hardpoint team. If they can take their own map pick, there's another win for them. And then can you win a search and destroy? game against a FaZe team that has struggled in that game mode this year. Granted, I have them as my fourth best team in that mode, but we're used to FaZe being the best, if not, second best search and destroy team. This year they're not that, and Thieves aren't great either, but like that's where you can catch this FaZe team. They're not perfect, they're flawed, as we know. They've lost multiple grand finals. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't love the Thieves play versus FaZe. I cannot like you cannot convince me that FaZe is the best pick there with those prices being that high. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they might win, but I can't lay that kind of like minus 500 to win. I couldn't. If FaZe was playing like LAG, a team that like stock is down for, and I am finding it hard to like come up with some sort of narrative on how they could win. This Thieves team we've seen show up here and there. And right now, like Major 3 was pretty good to them. They didn't win it or, even place top 3, but like they were solid. And that's kind of what we're looking for. We need a solid performance out of Thieves. Maybe they can squeak out some close maps and win it, or at least force the game 5.
Yeah. I forcing a game 5 is I
Easier
ca
said than done, but
yeah, I mean it is easier than done, but I can definitely see that, right? And at the price of plus 150 again, minus 200 for the minus 1.5, like come on. And the spreads, I don't love the plus 25.5. That's not great. Plus 1.5 in the search isn't horrible. I don't know. It's not great. I feel like it's Thieves or nothing. And it is online. Like FaZe just had a really good couple series there when they played Ultra and Thieves. They had a really good two series, and Thieves just had a really bad series. That was just a really bad series. I think they can come back from it. But like if you're laying minus 200, you've got to just be assuming that that series that you saw there, that 3-0 that you saw there at the thing, you're just assuming that you basically have to be assuming that that's basically what we're going to see again. That exact series, the 251-38 on Gavutu, 6-0 on Bakaj, 3-0 on Gavutu. You're just assuming that we're going to see it again. And to be fair, you can kind of I think you can kind of check out the S&D. Again, it just got away from them, right? Like it was bad. It just got really bad, and then it just spiraled, right? I think they lost the hard point, and then I think they got behind in the search, and then they're just like, we're done. And then they just got crushed in the control too, and it was just a bad series. Looking at this, Draws it did okay. Envoy had a really bad series. Um, actually, kind of, yeah, Envoy had a bad series. Octane did. Kenny was better. Simp went off, and Simp and Celium just kind of led the team. Abizi was about even. But like Simp went 51 and 33. Like I don't think you can and Celium 40 and 24. Like I don't think you can beat them when they go off like that. That's the problem, right? I don't. It doesn't matter how good you're being, but like if Simp is almost double positive, or if Celium is basically double positive, it's really hard to beat FaZe. So I'll bet on the regression. I'll bet on FaZe not being that good. Um, Yeah, so that wraps that up for us for this week. So obviously we'll be back next week. We'll talk about our bets for next week. Obviously, maybe we'll have some better bets on in terms of the futures to win the major and to reach the final. I think we have some interesting games coming up for next week as well. But we'll deal obviously more with that later though. But yeah, it's gonna be by next week. I suspect because New York is playing 2 games this week, we're gonna know if New York is gonna try to make champs or not. Like if they don't win these games, they're in trouble, right? Like if they go if they go 2-0, okay, this New York team has a chance. If they go 1-1, maybe. If they go 0-2, this team is done. This team may as well just start
I
packing
mean,
it in.
this week 1, we're gonna learn a lot about a lot of teams, right? Like the only teams that play once this weekend are FaZe, Paris, uh I'm forgetting the other 2, but, like, those teams we have a pretty good idea of right now. But, like, yeah, it's a crucial weekend for New York, for LAG, for Boston. Um, I guess London only plays once, so we might not learn a lot about them. But like these teams that are really, really on that 8 line that they may be in, they may be out. We're gonna find out quite a bit and hopefully use that info when we roll into week 2.
Hmm. Yep, makes sense. All right. Well, we will thank you for tuning in, everybody, and we will see you next week.